Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I wanted to hop on. This is the day after busy season for many people who are taking the CPA exam, and also people who have kind of been pushing to get through audit busy season as well. So, this was a perfect opportunity for me to give you the pep talk that you didn't ask for, but I think that you might need about the CPA exam and just give you a little bit of motivation because I know exactly how hard some of these hurdles have been for you in just getting motivated to take the exam, especially with score holds. So today is a good time to talk about some of those things, both from a motivation standpoint and strategy standpoint. And I'm open to anybody who joins in and wants to ask questions. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the exam process, especially this year in a year of exam change. So we'll see if anybody joins us. But in the meantime, this is your sign. You need to start studying again, even if you've taken a break or if scores have dropped off. I think the dropping off of scores has been subsided a little bit because they've been more lenient on some of these exam policies, but that is still an option for some of you who tested a little bit more previously prior to some of these special policies during COVID and that sort of thing. But being motivated to take the exam is really strong when you first start, and then it starts to wane as you get into the meat and potatoes of the content. And I think that that is a challenging thing for a lot of people. So as this is kind of a new phase of studying, it's like the new year of CPA exam studying. It's time to sit down with a piece of paper and start to write down why is it that you are taking the CPA exam, and hopefully it's to better yourself as a professional. Hopefully it's to make more opportunities for yourself as you grow in your career. This is a lifelong skill, and so it may take you a little bit longer to take the exam and pass and get your CPA license, but that's fine. And there's no reason to feel bad about that. If it's taking you a little bit longer than some of your peers, that is okay. Take a deep breath, take some time, journal about why you're doing this, what sacrifices you're willing to make to get this exam done. And I think that that motivation will help you get through the exam process in a much easier fashion, especially this year during the exam change period where you have to wait for your scores. And that's very frustrating. So it's good timing for you. There is another thing that I think, yes, a lot of people take a break during busy season, but I think also a lot of people will take a break after a failure. There's kind of a period of, I don't know if I can go in and do this again. There's a lot of, what do I even study? Okay, if you've had what I like to call a very expensive practice test at any point during your exam process, that is okay. It's very normal. I had some of those. I think most of my peers have had some of those, and it's not a reason to stop the studying process by any means. And so, if you are in a situation where you are just feeling discouraged, my best recommendation is you go to the AICPA exam blueprint and you print out a very fresh copy of it. You go ahead and just look through all of the representative tasks and look at each individual one and see where you are with each one. There'll be different skill levels. There'll be remembering and understanding. There'll be application. There'll be analysis. Go through and just read through each task and say, do I know this? If it's a yes, you write why. If it's a no, maybe, am. And you go through and you start to highlight the ones that are application and analysis, the things that you need to study a little bit more. That's the best way to dig back in after a break, after a failure, after feeling like you're really behind, to get a big picture overview. I know a lot of people just dig right into the material when they start studying again, but that'll give you a little bit more awareness on how much you're going to need to study going into this next phase, and also just what topics are being emphasized as a whole on the exam, because the content has changed. The review courses have done their very best to keep up with it, but we're still all learning in this process of exam change. So that is my recommendation. AICPA Blueprint, go through it, spend some time with it directly, not through a review course, and that will help you throughout the exam process to just feel better about the whole thing. All right. Once you've done that, I know that these scheduling windows are kind of odd. It's time to take the exam. I know that you're like, okay, well, maybe if I wait and I can study a little bit more and then I'm not going to have to wait as long for my score. I've found that the people who go in and get more repetitions, even if they end up having a exam that they do not pass, they're more prepared for the follow-up exam and they can get through the exam more quickly. So yes, it's a little bit more frustrating than when you have rolling testing and you can go right back in quickly. But the first exam window for some of these exams is April 24th. So if you go in there in the next week, even if you're not feeling 100% prepared, and just see where you're at and see what you would score in a real live game day setting, you're going to have better opportunities to study this summer and know exactly where your weaknesses are, know exactly what you struggled with when you took the exam. And those things are going to be very helpful when you have such a long wait between the score release dates over the summer. Because if you look at the score release dates for audit, FAR, and reg, they have the initial one will be on June 4th, but then there's this big gap between June 4th and the end of July, July 31st. So if you take your exam and you can get a release date in June, then you have a lot longer. You have a whole month of June to take the exam again if you decide that would have been a practice test. Go into it thinking, okay, maybe I don't know everything, but let's just have a practice test. I know it's a little bit more expensive to do it that way. I understand, but it's just the exam fee and your emotional, state going into the next exam. You just have to have the right mindset about it. And then you can get your score, figure out where you're at, and go back in June, and then get the release score at the end of July, and you'll have a much better picture of how you're going to do on these new exams. Again, I think a lot of people are scared to take the exam because they're worried about failing. And the more you can go in and you just kind of get a thicker skin about maybe not having the perfect exam, the better off you're going to be, in my experience. It's an emotional journey, but if you can do that and you can get the right mindset about it, I highly recommend that. Now, within that, there's some of these staggered parts. And I think the longer you wait on some of these disciplines, the more resources there are going to be for them. So I wouldn't necessarily be rushing in to take those. I'd focused on the core sections first. And then once the resources for these other sections get a little bit more built out and we understand what things are being emphasized over the next year, those will be a little bit better to take as we go along. But again, if you have a different skill set, maybe that's not the case. If you're an IT auditor, maybe taking the IT section, the ISC section, then maybe that would be a better fit for you. So I am available if you need some advice about the CPA exam, if you're dealing with some setbacks that really have you questioning the exam process. I'm available. Send me a direct message here on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to discuss it with you. And I want you to pass the exam. And I think everybody who is in this industry, in the exam prep industry, and then the profession as a whole would like you to pass the exam. So reach out for help. Do not do this alone. There is a community that wants to support you here and lots of resources. So have a wonderful rest prior to getting back to the books. And I hope that this has been helpful for you. Thank you for joining in today.